Hey everybody, Chase back here to do another tier list. Today we have the Persona 5 character tier list. This one's a special one for me as Persona 5 is one of my favorite games. Actually, it is my favorite game of all time. So here's basically how I'm going to do this. First, I'm going to change the D tier to just trash. Like obviously, there's going to be some trash. And how I'm going to do this is basically a lot of these characters double as confidants in the game, so I'm going to talk about their confidant storyline as a main basis for their um, tier listing, as well as for some of these, like An and Ryuji and Morgana, it's going to be like how well I like them as actual party members for the combat sections of the game. But then for the characters that aren't confidants, like say Kanashiro and Komoshida, we're just going to talk about how they are as villains. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first one we have here is we are going to start with Lavenza. So this is weird because I don't see the twins on here, but obviously Lavenza is here. So I'm just going to kind of talk about them as one character because they kind of are one character, just at some points they're split. So first, with the twins, I think the twins storyline through their confidant line of the more personas you bring them and fuse into the ones that they want with the correct move sets, the more they start to realize that they weren't the ones that wrote that list, that they're having you perform, as well as kind of starting to realize that they are not two individual people is really cool. I also really enjoy in the prison sections that they have that different dynamic where, they're dressed in cop outfits and one of them is good cop and the other one's bad cop. I think that's really good. And then when um, they turn into Lavenza, I think that's really cool because it their story arc comes full circle, and she really is the true helper of that Velvet Room cell. So I'm gonna put her in the A tier. I don't know why they chose this picture for her. It's not the best picture, but whatever. Um, Next, we will do Yusuke. Yusuke, I've never been a big fan of Yusuke. I don't like his storyline because I'm not a big cultured person when it comes to art and things like that. And I've just never been one of those people that likes those kind of tropes in games where it's that person that's just kind of out there and weird because of the fact of just being weird and being eccentric because he's the artist and he's like the creative. So and then as a party member himself, I've never really found him as good. I found him as a budget Ryuji. He's pretty much the same character as Ryuji, but his role as a physical kind of attacker isn't necessarily as great as Ryuji's. And he doesn't necessarily get as great of physical moves. So even though his stats might be on par, or maybe even slightly better than Ryuji's in the end game, his moves aren't nearly as good. And from what I've seen with Joker, is that you can pretty much craft any persona that you want that's ice, and a lot of the late game personas like Satan is really good, is an ice move persona. So you can pretty much just replace him pretty easy. I'm going to put him in the C tier. He's a pretty average character. Like I wouldn't say he's trash, but he's a pretty average character. Next is Hifumi, the shogi player. Hifumi is one of those ones where when I start doing my like third, fourth, fifth run of Persona 5. I feel like she's going to end up being the one that I romance because she's one of the ones outside of the actual party members that I really enjoy her storyline. I really just enjoy her as a character and her as like her personality type because she's really down to earth. She's not really like superficial or like, kind of dramatized up or down for story purposes. She's just kind of really super down to earth, where she feels like she's this really dominant shogi player, but she realizes that it's just been her mom rigging the matches the whole time to gain her popularity and get her noticed. So then she gets knocked down and a peg, but she realizes that she needs to um, work for everything herself. So I really enjoy that, and I really feel like she's going to be one of my next romance options because um, Kasumi isn't on this list, or it is a spoiler for her, so I'm just going to call her Kasumi. She's not on this list. She was my second one. Makoto, obviously, my first one. And I think that she will probably actually be my third, if not maybe Haru. So I'm going to put her up in the A tier. I think I like her more than Lavenza, so we'll put her in front of Lavenza. Next is Makoto. Makoto is... I go back and forth between her being best girl or second to Kasumi. So obviously you probably know where I'm going to put her already, but I love her storyline. She's like written so well as not only being the book smart girl that just is totally ignorant when it comes to anything that she can't read in a book or learn in a class, where her street smarts per se aren't there. But the romancing option is hilarious because you're like, giving her signs and kind of like coming on to her, and she's just totally gets flustered because she has no idea how to flirt or flirt back because she's never read it in a book. It's hilarious. And not only that, but she's probably my favorite party member because she's kind of a jack of all trades. She's got pretty good physical attack. She's got a pretty good magical attack. Nuclear typing is pretty good as well. And she also has pretty good status moves as well. Like she can put forget. I think it's forget, where they can't use their skills. As well as she can also up the defense for your whole party, which is really solid. And just her first level persona is just incredible. The introduction scene of her getting her persona and you leaving Kanashiro's palace is just the greatest awakening scene of any of the personas from your main party members. So I think Makoto is S easily. Next, we have Mr. Okumura. He's going to be in the trash tier because he is the worst palace one of the worst palaces in the game. It's so bad. His like persona form, or like his evil form when he is inside of his palace, is just horrendous. Like they're trying to go for like a Darth Vader, like Futurama crossover looking sort of thing, and it just looks horrible. And he sounds horrible with the like distortion and kind of like auto tune they put onto his character overall. And he's just not a good villain. It's like he's just a bad guy. Like he just works his company employees to the bone, to the fact that they're getting sick or dying. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's not like a lot of the other ones on this list where they're like sexually abusing female high school students, or they're a mob boss that's using high school students to sell drugs, or like a dude who's literally trying to become the prime minister of the entire country, who is just absolutely a vile human being. Or a person that's using his art, or using his students' art to make a fortune and to become famous. So there's a pretty big distinction there as well. So he's just not very good. It's the whole arc and just the palace in general is probably the worst one in the game overall. Next we have An. An is another great example. She's not necessarily my type for the romance option. She's kind of like Bilbo girl. Like she's not like your normal Bilbo girl. Like she's not like super stupid, but she's not very smart. Anyway, so she's not really my type when it comes to the romance option, but I do really like her as a friend. She's a really committed, really like solid friend, as well as I do love her story with Shiho in her confidant line and her becoming more confident in herself and wanting to show Shiho that she can be as strong as Shiho is in her recovery, with her modeling career and just everything that she wants to do with her life. It's really encouraging, and it's really cool to see. As well as her persona is also really good because even though fire isn't necessarily an amazing type, like I would say it's a average, just slightly above average type of an attack move. She is the main like magician. Her like magic is the highest. She is mage special, as well as she also has the ability to put enemies to sleep, which can also be a pretty good thing as well. And she can also decrease the enemy's attack, which in the later stages is a huge, huge benefit to your team. So her use as a party member is she's always in my party. So from the very beginning of the game when you get her until the very end game. So I am also going to put her in S, but she is behind best girl Makoto. Next we have the doctor, Takemi. I really enjoy her confidant line overall, where she goes from being a doctor that doesn't want to do anything. She believes that she's the plague. She believes that she shouldn't even really be doing this. That she's just kind of riding a little side hustle here, to end up through your interactions with her becoming someone that loves her work, that loves working with the people in Shibuya. Are not Shibuya, the people in your area, uh, and working with those people, and developing relationships with those patients, as well as being able to continue her work to be able to save the patient that she got sick. And I really like that. And as a romance option, she might become my third if I decide to go with her instead of Hifumi. But I really do think she's a good romance option overall. So I am going to put her in A, and I'm going to put her actually above Hifumi, if it will allow me to. There. Next, we have Ryuji. Ryuji is also a staple party member for me. I've already come to my 3 staple party members already this early in the video. But Ryuji is just like, he's the most loyal guy. He's the most loyal friend that you have throughout the entire journey, as well as he just is an amazing party member. He's the physical attacker. He gets amazing moves, God's hand, and it makes up for how kind of bad the electric typing is. Like, most enemies in the game aren't weak to electric. A lot of them are actually resistant to electric. So a lot of the times his magic moves aren't even used or even useful, but a lot of times you won't even use them because his magic stat isn't necessarily super high, but his attack is ridiculously high. So he's really good. Plus, he also, where An and Makoto, where An decreases the attack, which overall kind of increases your defense, as well as Makoto increasing your defense, he's going to increase your attack. He's going to make it so you can deal more damage, and that's always huge. So I think Ryuji goes in between Makoto and An in the S tier. I think he's incredibly well written, extremely, as well as his confidant line, where he comes as a guy that just kind of is a loud, rambunctious kind of asshole, to a guy that you understand as someone that's kind of been outcasted by circumstance. And you're the guy, you're like the dude like that he needed in his life to, be his best buddy, be his partner in crime. Akechi. Now this one's a weird one for me because Akechi, I hate him. He's horrible. He's a sly, conniving asshole, and I'm sure that his confidant line isn't as good in Persona 5, the vanilla game, because I've heard that the changes they made to him in Royal for his confidant line are actually really good changes. And as of right now, I've only played Royal. I haven't played the original game, so I wouldn't know his confidant line in the original game. But I'm gonna put him in B because this is what it is. How much as I hate him as a character, I love him as a villain. He's an incredible villain. Um, as sort of the exact foil to Joker, of the guy that's smart but doesn't look the part. He doesn't look like the super smart guy. He doesn't look like he's a conniving guy, a sly person like Joker is, of doing things that he probably shouldn't be doing, or you wouldn't think that he would be doing behind the scenes. Like you behind the scenes as a Phantom Thief, and his is like kind of the anti Phantom Thief. And I think that he's just, as being a direct foil to Joker, that just makes him an incredible villain. Incredible villain. And just the scenes that he gets, like the reveal of that while he's in your party, he looks like this super like hero. He's wearing white clothes. His, persona's Robin Hood, who is, white and pure in appearance, as well as his whole mantra of fighting for his own justice. To then the darkness of his outfit and the darkness of the Loki persona when he goes full rage mode and shows his true form. It's just one of the best reveals in the entire game. So I think Akechi is I think that balances Akechi out as a horrible character, but as a great villain, as a B tier. Next we have Morgana. Morgana's weird because I like his confidant line with him kind of beginning to understand where he came from and if he truly is human or not. But one, he's annoying because he always makes you go to bed, and he's like kind of like your ruler, even though you're the person, and he's like the cat or the animal, which is weird. As well as a party member, I don't necessarily love him because even though he's a healer, you can heal with other members of your party. Like you can have a dedicated healing persona with Joker, as well as you can also have a really good healing and cleansing setup with Makoto, because she's such a great utility person. Like not only does she have good damage, but she also puts status effects on the enemy as buffs on you, as well as she also is an acceptable healer as well. So it just kind of puts all of Morgana's tendencies out of the way, like all of his strengths out of the way. And so I would kind of put him as B. I would even put him under Akechi because his usefulness, I just don't really see much for his usefulness. So next we have Joker. I think that this goes without saying. Joker's the best character in the game. Obviously, you play as him. Not only did Atlus nail the appearance of just an amazing protagonist of a dude that just looks just absolutely ordinary. He just looks absolutely ordinary, but then has this like amazing side to him where he's just the leader of this supernatural group of high school kids that do these incredible things. It's just amazing. Like it's just amazing the way that he turns from a guy that just looks absolutely ordinary in school and just in the real world to someone who just has so much bravado and confidence as the leader of the Phantom Thieves. It's just amazing writing and amazing just character design in general. And Joker's he's just the best. Next we have Iwai. I probably said that wrong. But the Gunman. The Gunman story is actually surprisingly good. He took in this kid that I don't think is his, but he took him in and made him his own, and he dropped being a member of the Yakuza because of this, and has tried to stay as far away from it and keep his kid away from it as much as possible so his kid can live a good life. And he can kind of turn the page as still selling guns, which is something that he's good at from being a Yakuza member, but be able to turn a new page and be a good father. is quite good. So I would say he's in the B tier. I would say he topped the B tier right now. I would say he's above average. He's quite an above average character, but not necessarily in the A tier. Next, we have Chihaya, the fortune teller. I love Chihaya. Her abilities in her confidant line, which allow you to go to her every day and enhance like the relationship that you have with one of your other characters, so you can level up their confidants faster, see their confidant scenes faster, get their confidant abilities faster, is probably the best ability in the entire game. One of maybe the two best abilities in the entire game. And her confidant line is just great. Like, she comes from somewhere, she's a fortune teller who thinks she's the devil, thinks she's awful, coming from a small town, and this organization accepts her but takes advantage of her, where then she can learn to do her own fortune telling, and that fortunes can change, and that she might not always be right. And I love that. I really do. I think that I'm going to put her, even though her confidant line I might not love as much as Hifumi or Takemi, I think her abilities as well speak for themselves. Being able to get more money when you go into Mementos or a dungeon, as well as the relationship strengthening ability. It's just too good to pass up, or to overlook. So I think she's the top of A. Next, we have Futaba. Futaba is probably one of my top 4 favorite characters in the entire game. And I'm just going to put this out there. She's going to be my last romance option, because I think of her as the little sister archetype, where Sojiro is your father for the game, and and obviously Futaba being his sort of daughter makes it that, she's kind of your little sister, and that's weird. I think of that as weird. But she's awesome. Like, she's so cool. Her She's probably one of the most developed out characters, because not only does she have a full confidant line like everyone else, as well as your party members, but she also has a whole storyline when you first get introduced to her, because she is the main villain, or the main focus of the Fourth Palace. She being able to get her to overcome her shyness and her resentment over just people in the world in general, of the circumstances that she's had to go through. It's just incredible character development, and the way that you take on that big brother role in her confidant line to push her out of her shell even more, to be able to make friends, to be able to socialize with others in her age, and to be able to finally go back to school. All the things that her late mother, wished for her to be able to do, it's just heartwarming. As well as, I can't be remiss without saying that her dubbed voice actress is also probably my favorite English voice actress, who also does Kaori in Your Lie in April. So she is in S tier, in between Makoto and Ryuji. Next, we have Igor. Now, Igor's weird, because for the majority of the game, he's been possessed as the other main villain entity in the game. So you only get a short time of him as actual Igor. But I guess they have 2 Igors on this list. So this is Bad Igor. Bad Igor, he presents sort of an uneasiness and an intimidatingness of when every time you go to the prison cell or the Velvet Room. But I don't necessarily love Evil Igor, so I'm gonna put him in C. And then for Good Igor, I think I'm gonna put him just slightly above him, because you don't get very much time with regular Igor. So, and I know that this tier list doesn't look very good, because it's wow, you're really top heavy. But yeah, it's just how much I love the characters in this game. But don't worry, we'll start to get lower. Next, we've got Kaneshiro, the Third Palace boss and main villain. He's not a very intriguing villain, because he's just that bland mob boss. So there's not really too much to say about him. He's just kind of that bland mob boss. I do love his boss fight, though. because it's 2 stages. You have to fight Piggytron, and then you have to, or maybe you fight him first and then no, I think you fight Piggytron first and then you fight him with the goons, which him with the goons is actually kind of a tough boss fight overall. So I think I'm going to put him in the C tier above the Igors. Next we have Madarame. Madarame is also trash. I think he's above Mr. Okumura, but hear me out. Madarame is just so boring. Like, again, I don't love the art aspect of it, of this whole storyline, but his boss fight's dumb because it's just look at the color of his robe and attack the opposite of it. And you just do that eventually until you can just attack his regular body as much as possible. And like the first stage of it with the painting parts is so ridiculously easy, it takes no thought. As well as just the whole premise, like, he's just barely a step above Okumura in terms of like not necessarily that horrible of a person. Like, he's not like raping these kids or like, you know, like doing bad, like really heinous acts to these kids that he takes in to like train under his art tutelage. He just takes their art and just uses it as himself, as his own, which is inherently bad. Like, it's fraud, but like it's not the worst thing in the world. So like, I don't know. He's not great. Now here's where it starts to get a little controversial. Shido, who's kind of like the main villain, one of the main villains of the entire game, him and Akechi, because like he's the one that sued you and got you into this position in the first place. But he's actually kind of a bad villain. Like, his boss fight's not great. The Akechi fight is way better. So like, after doing the Akechi fight and just all the stuff in the late game, he's actually really disappointing. Like, his palace is cool overall, but like, he's just kind of boring. And overall, I think he's in the C tier. Like, it's just more of that. It's like just a big disappointment when like the teases have been going the whole time where like you as the player knows that this dude's like the main bad guy, but Joker can't remember his face because that night the incident happened. Like, it was dark and everything happened so fast that you couldn't see the man's face and like remember him well. But over the course of the game, you start remembering him. So next we have the teacher, Sadayo Kawakami. I accidentally romanced her on my first playthrough with Makoto on accident because I was ignorant about the game and I didn't realize that when it was telling me you can't go back on this choice, I was just trying to say the nicest choice to try to get the most like, music notes to progress her confidant line, because I knew that at the end of her confidant line, her last ability is just so amazing. It's one of the 2 best abilities in the game with Chihaya's, of being able to have her come do a massage for you so you can go out at night after being in a palace or in Mementos, which is even more apparent and important in the first game, in the vanilla game, because the vanilla game, Morgana forces you to sleep a lot more than in Royal. You get a lot more free time in Royal. So this ability might even be better than Chihaya's ability in the vanilla game. And her romance option isn't bad. Like, it's kind of weird because of the dynamic of she's a teacher and you're her student. But like, overall, like, if you take that context out of it, like, it's really not that weird. It's not super weird, but like, they write it in a way that even though it seems kind of weird, like, you can see how it fits. And so I'm going to put her in the A tier, and I'm going to put her above. I'm going to put her in the top of A tier because I really do enjoy her character overall. So next we have the Gunabout Kid. The Gunabout Kid, like, I love the mentorship of the confidant line where he's this arrogant kid that obviously is like the best at this video game, but like, can't make friends because he kind of is arrogant and he kind of just comes from bad circumstances at home. But you teach him kind of compassion and kind of how to like speak with others so he can end up making friends and, you know, just kind of live a normal kid life. And so I think I'm going to put him in the B tier, but he's going to be at the end of the B tier. Next we have the politician. We have the politician Yoshida. His confidant line is okay. Like, not only is it a pain in the ass because you can only do his confidant lines on Sunday evenings when he gives speeches, but his abilities aren't amazing. Like, it's like you can ask for more money in fights. It allows you easier ways to, like, get more personas on your side when you talk to them. But like at the end of the day, his abilities aren't amazing. His confidant line's not amazing. I'm just honestly gonna put him in the C tier, like maybe like right there. Next we have Futaba's mother, and she's a great villain. Don't get me wrong. In her palace, she's a great villain, but that's not the true nature of her mom. Her mom was actually really sweet, and I love in Royal in the post game content that's new to Royal, you get to see her and you get to kind of see the true side of her. Now, I don't want to spoil anything of why she's there, but it's really good, and I really do enjoy her. I really do. I think I'm going to put her at the top of C tier. I want to put her in B, but like, if it'll allow me here. There we go. But I just can't feel good about myself putting her in B because she's really not in the game at all. And so I'm just going to put C. Next, we have Mishima. Mishima is the worst character in the game, in my opinion. Not the worst character, sorry, second worst character in the game, in my opinion. He's just so odd that it's just cringe. Like, his whole character is just cringe. His whole confidant line story is just cringe. Now, don't get me wrong, his confidant line abilities are amazing, and so that's why, like, he was, like, the first character that I actually maxed out, because all of his abilities are based on XP with your team. Get more XP for your party members. Allow your party members that aren't in your party, that you're not currently using, to get the same amount of XP, so they stay in the same level. Even more XP, even more. Like, he's got really great abilities for leveling up for the combat sections of the game, but he's just a bad character overall, and his character's just super cringe. Next, we've got Sojiro. Sojiro's going to be the top of A. I love Sojiro. I love his confidant line where he basically just spills his heart out to you about kind of warming up to you over the course of the game, of how he didn't want to talk to you about anything, thought you were a criminal, thought you were this punk kid, to slowly opening up to you and eventually telling you the story about Futaba and her mother and how much he's done for her to try to get her to open up to him, and the fact that he's so thankful to you and your friends for getting her to open up and to become who he wants her to be and who he thinks that she could be, and just overall embracing kind of the role of your father figure over the course of the game. And not only that, but his abilities are also good, allowing you to craft coffee and curry to heal MP and actual HP, so then you don't have to spend money at Takemi's overpriced store on medicine. Next, we have Haru. I feel bad for Haru because she's just a victim of circumstance. Because by the time you unlock her, you probably already have your party set in stone, whether that be with Makoto, whether it be my setup where it's, Makoto, Ryuji, and An, or if you're using Yusuke, or if you're using, I guess that's it. But if you're using those mixtures of those four party members already, it gets pretty hard that late into the game to add another party member in. But Atlas didn't do her any favors because psychokinesis is the weakest of all of the like magic types. So not only that, but the gun skills are also kind of useless in Royal anyway. They're definitely more useful in Persona 5, the base game, because the gun system works differently. In Royal, your guns regenerate the bullets after every encounter. So gun skills are pretty much useless because why waste HP to use a gun skill when you can just use one bullet in your gun to knock down an enemy that's weak to gun? So she's kind of a victim of circumstance there, as well as she kind of tries to be the jack of all trades in stats wise that Makoto is, but she's just not as good as Makoto. Story wise, she's also a victim of circumstance there because it's a family story, and I just really don't love the story with Mr. Okumura. So um, she's just kind of a victim of circumstance, but her own confidant line is just cute beyond all measures, and that's just who she is overall. So I think I'm going to put her here in the A tier below. Man, I really think I need to do some. I think I need to do some tweaking, but that'll come at the end. Next, we have Sai. Sai is a good character. She's not great because she doesn't really have her own confidant line besides just you retelling her everything during the course of the game. And then sort of the decisions that she makes at the end of the game to help you live and to help you escape and stuff like that is really cool. But I just think she's like the top of B tier. I just think she's just the top of B tier character. Komoshida. I think Komoshida's Palace is one of the best in the game. It's definitely the best first level I've ever played, and he feels like the best villain for the circumstances of the game because you're just learning these powers and you're taking down someone in your own school that personally affects you. And just how vile he is. Like that's kind of something that you would think of when you think of a high school, like someone that's a, just a crappy individual overall is someone that's, a coach that is physically abusing his players and someone that is like a pervert that's sexually abusing the female students, obviously who's someone that's very much older and in a position of power that those people don't really want to resist because of that position of power that he's in. So I think he is an A tier. I think that of his circumstance, I think he's an A tier, and I think I would put him here. I think he's a really good character. And then finally, we reach the last character. Oya is the worst character in the game. Her confidant line sucks. Her character sucks. Everything about her sucks. She's just horrible, and she'll probably be the second to last person I romance, just because I don't want to romance her, but second to last just because I think the Futaba thing is too weird. And then for the added one, we'll just do a little, "Bunao, it's Kasumi," and she would be either right here in front of Joker, in between Joker and Makoto, or in between Makoto and Futaba. She's either best character, best girl, or second best girl, in my opinion. She's an amazing character, and the way that they wrote her in Royal is amazing. And then Dr. Maruki would also be at the very tail end of S tier because he's an amazing villain, as well as his confidant line overall is just really, really good, as well as him just overall increasing your SP over the entirety length of the game while you interact with him is really good as well. But I think I'm going to do some tweaking. I think I'm going to move Lavenza down here in the B tier because where she is a good character, the confidant line can be really annoying because of the fact that you have to do so much like researching and stuff to be able to fuse the right personas with the right moves or leveling up a persona to a certain level so it can gain the move and stuff like that. I think I'm going to also move Takemi down into the B tier above Gunman, and I think I'm going to move. I think I'm also going to move Hifumi to the top of B tier to kind of balance our spread out here because whereas I love Hifumi's confidant line and her as a character, she is kind of bland She doesn't have like the big things that a lot of the other characters have. So yeah, overall, I think this is a really good representation of how I feel about the Persona 5 characters overall, based on their confidant lines, based on how I view them as a character overall, as well as the way that they are in the party if they are party members. So yeah, there we go, and thank you guys so much.